of Nick's Halloween Spooktacular. What evil looks had I from old and young? Instead of the cross about my neck, the albatross was hung. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner is Samuel Taylor Coleridge's epic and enduring masterpiece, a work of English romanticism and classic horror. Really, the poem can best be described as a ghost story set amidst the high seas, but even that doesn't do it justice. It was written in 1798, right at the end of the Great Age of Discovery, about 20 years after Captain Cook descended to Davy Jones's locker when the far corners of the world were being filled in. But even though enlightenment was taking hold and scientific progress was beating the superstitions of the church back into the shadows, there still was, as there always will be, the element of the unknown and the monsters that lurk beneath the waves. The story begins with a crazy guy. Well, technically there's a sane guy, but he gets accosted by a crazy guy who's going around telling people his story. He goes far back to when the tale really begins. He was on a ship, and they get blown south to the Antarctic Circle. However, they're led from certain doom by the largest of the flying birds, an albatross, long considered to be a good omen of the sea. However, our hero takes sight of the bird and shoots it, as you do. First, the crew is upset with him, but then they notice the weather is starting to clear up until ghosts start to come out of the water and chase them down. But then they feel fine when they reach warm and calmer waters, until there's water everywhere, nor any drop to drink, and suddenly it's Mr. Mariner's fault. And then they tie the poor dead bird around the guy's neck. Like this. Soon they enter a ghost ship with death as its captain. Finally, Mr. Mariner is able to lift the curse of the albatross by admiring the sea life beneath him. Tree-hugging hippie! Christ, I bet he wants to be a marine biologist when he grows up, too. Even though his soul is saved, the ship and the rest of his crew are sucked beneath the waves, leaving him stranded on a populated island. He eventually makes his way back to civilization and has to wander the countryside telling his story over and over again. Really, what can I say about this story that hasn't already been said? Doctorates have been won and lost on its pages. It's just one of those stories that has transcended time. Obviously, it takes influence from the Odyssey and Robinson Crusoe and even old Viking sagas. It helped ignite an interest in nautical fiction, inspiring stories like Edgar Allan Poe's Arthur Pym and even Moby Dick, which is a kind of a horror story, if you think about it. There's even a scene in the more recent film, Master and Commander, Far Side of the World, where they hunt down and shoot an albatross for no reason. But then there's the big one, the one we had to win. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. I talked about this book before back in the history of science fiction, but I didn't give all the details. The book features an alien ghost who wants to create life on Earth, but his dying is what actually sparks life on Earth. He wanders the world for millennia, trying to find people who he can possess to accomplish his goal. One of those people is Coleridge, and he gets him to write the Rime of the Ancient Mariner by interrupting Kubla Khan. See? Everyone has an interpretation of this story. And that's the beautiful thing about poetry. It's not as literal as other forms of literature, and you can draw from it what you will. Unlike prose, which is for pussies. It's almost like following the albatross to wherever it will lead you. Speaking of the albatross, for those of you who don't know, an albatross is the largest flying bird in the world. Yes, there are emus and ostriches, but they don't fly. And of course, the largest flying albatross is Diomedia exulans, in English known as the wandering albatross. It can have a wingspan up to 11 feet across and can weigh up to 26 pounds. It is a fucking badass. See, my marine biology degree is useful. And yes, this follows under marine biology, or marine ornithology, if you insist. Of course, a big part of the story is that the mariner might simply have been crazy the whole time. I mean, he certainly believes the story he's spouting, but it is rather fantastical. Perhaps his mind had snapped somewhere on the wine-dark seas, and his fevered brain conjured up images of the dead ships and ghostly monsters. But you never really know. How terrifying is that the things you think you remember as clear as day may only be figments of your own demented imagination. Anyway, the story spearheaded English Romanticism, which was known for its gothic and horrific themes. Men like William Blake and Wolfgang von Goethe were part of this movement. Percy Shelley and his wife, Mary, were part of this movement. And of course, arguably the greatest composer of all time, Ludwig van Beethoven, was a part of this movement, who had more than his fair share of dark themes too. A lot of his music reflects lost loves and the eternal damnation he felt from the time he was an abused child to the loneliness of a musician losing his hearing. Many of these themes of the Romantic era reflect man's small stature in the face of nature, how small humanity really is when confronted with the eternal force of the cosmos. Don't forget, this was also after the Enlightenment period and the scientific revolution, when the power of nature was first being harnessed by man, and he seemed to be in control of his environment. It was a reminder of just where he stood in the world. And even then, this idea isn't new. The old religions show nature and the cosmos as infinite and varied, with man only a small, limited piece of whatever God's creation he treads on. Science and religion aren't all that different when you look at them side by side. Really, that seems to be the main thesis of the story, the horrifying power of nature. First, they're blown asunder by the southerly winds, and then they're punished for the murder of the bird. Despite all of man's technology, he is still nature's puppet. And that's the real horror. How even though we live in these false comforts of civilization, we can still be thrown about by random tragedy, by hurricanes and floods, by savage beasts and bites so small as to be hardly noticed. And that darkest jungle of all, the inner nature of man, and the beast that resides within his own mind.